I'm going to just show you how I clean my pistons. I soaked them in that power tuner around this stuff right here. Soaked the rings around them and the wrist pin and underneath in the piston with that stuff for a few days now. And then I don't have good lighting over here, so it's just too bad if, they can't be bothered. But anyway, they clean up pretty good. You just scrub away at them. So I don't know if you can see some of the crud on the piston or not, but that stuff just comes right off. This is piston number 7, and the rings were stuck in all the pistons. So you can see the rings. This second ring is still a little stuck right in there, but I'm sure I can get it out and clean. But it cleaned all that crud up that was down in by the wrist pin. The wrist pins are nice and free. I'm going to clean the inside of that. This was one of the nastier pistons. That's why I'm doing this piston for the video. I'm not going to video all 8 of them because I'd have people clicking off my channel. Like, you clean one, you've cleaned them all. We're skipping through it. And I'm not going to video any of the sanding or grinding because that super fine floury dust that just gets in everything will ruin the camera. So you're not going to see. I'll show you what I'm going to do and what I've done, but I am not going to show. I mean, anyone can sand. It's kind of a no-brainer. I think anyone can kind of do this stuff too, but so maybe you want to see what I do. And like I say, I did clean spray these with that engine tuner to try and get all these rings freed up, and most of them are freeing up, and this one is not. But now look at how much cleaner that is, and more of it will come out as I work at it. It's just time consuming. You got to get all that crud out. Very, very time consuming per piston. And no, Ford did not mark their pistons 3 or 5 thousandths oversized, as you saw on that engine block. I'll show you. I'll just take the camera over there and show you. The engine's turned over and I don't feel like spinning it around because then I got to take the crank out. 3, 4, 3, 4. That's the size those bores were punched oversized at the factory to make a good bore. I used to have the service bulletins on all this stuff. I used to work in a Ford dealer. I did a lot of the heavy engine stuff. And the 306s and the pickups and vans were the most common engine I worked on for this. For Ford would, it cost them a lot of money to bore these make these castings, and just to throw them away, because when they bore it, there's still some pits in the cylinder, very fine. They can bore to 2, 3, 4, 5 thousandths more, maybe 6 thousandths, and have a clean bore, and then they just throw a 3 or 5 thousandths oversized piston in. And in the early 80s, Ford was making those 306s so quick they ran out of pistons, so they threw in the standard bore piston, and when the engine was cold, that piston would slap in the bore and knock. And so the customers that squeaked, we put new pistons in their engine. So I'd pull a intake and exhaust manifold and say right on the exterior of the block, the oversized bores. I'd order the parts. They'd be in a few days. Pull ahead and drop the sump and just replace those pistons and throw the engine back together. That was it. We just buttoned them right back up. Didn't hone cylinders, nothing. That was a service bulletin. Ford never recalled them. If customers didn't complain, they did nothing with them. It's just the way they manufactured their stuff. Most of the time they put the correct piston in, which wasn't marked, and didn't knock. And they assumed by the time, if that 3 or 5 thousandths piston and bore lasted, 100,000 miles or so before the engine needed rebuilding, or when it's worn out, whenever, if they never change oil, they're going to be boring it out 10, 20 over anyway, so they really didn't have any reason to mark the stuff. They just had separate bins with oversized pistons. You know, I knew people that worked in Romeo engine plant. That's where the engine was built in that. Same thing, no different. Anyway, let me get back to cleaning this up. I might even spray some more of that power tune on these for a couple more days after I give them a quick cleaning here. I'm trying not to hit the piston with the rod. Try and avoid that. You can flare those skirts out and then they get tight in the bore. And a couple of these rods, when I took the rod nuts off, they didn't unscrew smoothly, and some of the threads came with them, so I did order new connecting rod bolts and nuts for the whole engine, so I'll replace all of them. But yeah, you just work at it, and you know, it takes time, but that's part of when you want to save money and doing it yourself. And like I say, I've worked in a Ford dealer as a heavy engine mechanic, and my brother worked for Chrysler, did a lot of heavy engines, so you know, I have a little bit of experience with this kind of stuff. And this engine's just going to be fine. It's going to run easily another 100,000 miles. A little bit of carbon was there, and it's just brushing away. All that dark stuff will eventually, it just takes a few sprays and clean. This is the first time I've put these pistons in the parts washer. Probably could use new solvent. That's mineral spirits in here. Odorless mineral. It's not the non-flammable, it's the real stuff, so it does a good job of cleaning. The engine kit did come with new pistons, but yeah, that other ring is starting to come freer. This middle one's the one that's stuck on this piston still, but this was the worst piston of all, and the top ring's totally free, and the middle one's mostly free other than just a little bit right in here. And sometimes you just work them a little bit, and see how I just work it a little bit. See how it's coming free? There, it just freed up. So now that piston ring's free too. Got a little bit of solvent on my hands, but I've always had these gloves. I just leave them in the parts washer. It just makes life easier cleaning this stuff up. The only thing is with these gloves, it gets a little slippery. So there we go. These pistons will get a little bit more. This one will get a little more soaking, so I'm going to go do that right now. Might have to get another can of this stuff out. This one's getting low, but you kind of get the picture. Where it's still a little dirty, I give it a little shot of this spray. So we're getting the rings straight up. Anyway, I'm going to go around and clean the rest of these pistons up. So I gave the pistons all a first round of cleaning. This one's still got one stuck ring, and I'll just work at it, and eventually the other one's just flapping around as I turn it. But I'll just soak it another day or two, and you know, I got to start cleaning up parts, so that's why I thought, well, I'll work on this. I got to get the air conditioner off, as I said, so I'll probably do that. May do that in a separate video. I don't video all this and speed it up for you to see me clean all 8 pistons, because that takes a lot of space on the memory card. It takes a lot of time to upload it, and then it takes a lot of time to edit it, and it just, you know, I don't know, it just adds hours and hours of work to try and, you know, video it to where I can speed it up in hyperspeed. So that's why I'm only going to do, well, I'll do one of these. I'll show you one journal how I polish it. I'll video cleaning up the engine. But like I say, when I start sanding and grinding, you're not going to see video of me moving sandpaper back and forth or running a disc grinder, because that stuff's so fine, it just gets into everything and it'll just destroy the camera. Clean up the lifter valley pan a little bit. Now, also it's hot out and I can't run my fan. It's right next to my parts washer. So it drowns out the video noise. But anyway, we'll get some things cleaned up. You can see some shiny metal there where I think that's where sludge was, where the shiny metal was, and the rest is like coated in a varnish. Probably should just take this off the oil pump. I think I'll just leave it in the parts washer for now because the screen can soak really well. I do need to reuse this part. It's actually pretty clean. But I'm going to let it soak in the bottom of the parts washer. Let's see what else we can clean. Yeah, this is nasty. I need a new drain plug nut for the oil pan. The drain plug that's in it is stripped. Not the drain plug, but the nut, you know, for the drain plug. It's mainly just all on the bottom of the sump. Anyway, it's nasty. Just get the heavy stuff off before I throw it in the parts washer. And I should have put gloves on. Yuck, huh? I've cleaned my hands up. I've been wearing my gloves in the parts washer, so I haven't really needed the nitrate gloves. Those are nitrate, those ones in the parts washer. They live in the parts washer. Alright, let's take this over to the parts washer. Yeah, this is nasty, but it's going to clean up. This is what most of the work is on the car, you know, doing stuff like this. It's just time consuming, just fooling around, cleaning things up, and, you know, just, this is it. This is restoring the car. You gotta, has to be done, and I'm not going to pay somebody else to do it when I'm totally capable of doing it. It's the only way this car is affordable to restore, you know. I mean, these cars, you know, they're worth $25,000 or so, $26,000 restored. And if it costs $50,000 or $60,000 to pay somebody to restore it, the only way it's going to get restored is if somebody, yeah, I got to have a '66 Galaxy 500 convertible in these colors and this drivetrain. That's how, you know, a car like this somebody might put the money into, something they're going to keep. But to try and make some money, you know, you can't go putting $50,000, $60,000 into a car and then get 25 for it. So basically, if I wasn't doing this car, or a do-it-yourselfer wasn't doing it like me, it would probably be a parts car. You know, it's just, even though it's in super solid car and all there and numbers matching, it's just not, the value of paying somebody to restore the car is just not there. I've been in this, you know, pretty much while doing old cars my whole, since I've been 17, and, you know, I'm pushing 60. Worked in Ford dealers, I worked at a school bus garage. Back then all the school buses that I worked on were 361 FE engines. They're all Ford B700 and B750 chassis. They all had 5-speed manuals and air brakes with power steering. And you know, that was just the way it was in the 70s and the early 80s. I think the 80 model, they started using the 370 Lima engine. But previous to that, they're all 361 FEs. This I'll probably throw in the bead blast cabinet and get all the scale and rust and everything off of it, and so the paint looks, you know, so it looks like a brand new oil pan. You know, I mean, that's the proper way to make it look good, is to strip everything off. But the less, the more I clean it here, the less mess it makes in the blast cabinet. So I try and get all the oil and grease off of it completely before I put it in the bead blast cabinet. But now you're getting the picture, you know. You can see kind of what I do when I'm putzing. This is just, you know, stuff that needs to be done. Sometimes I might spend an hour on something like this, you know, to get all the 100% of the crud off, and then, you know, by the time I bead blast it, I'll probably have several hours into it. And I got to repair that drain plug, and you know, people tell me to take the motor out and have it hot tanked. Well, these guys don't do that for free, and you know, and have them put the cam bearings in. Well, I can put the cam bearings in. You know, I'll show you when I go to do it. And how to do it. You need a special tool, but you know, it's no big deal. And you know, I did that stuff for a living, so I don't find it a big deal. You know, why should I pay somebody to do something that I used to do for a living? It just, you know, I can save my money, put it into other things on the car and make it nicer, because, you know, I can put the cam bearings in the same. I'll actually probably take more care than what somebody in a shop would do. They're not, it's not their car. They're just gonna get it in, get it done, and get it out the door. That's all they care. And you know, I'm gonna put my love into it, make sure it's done right. That's why I spent so much time measuring the bores. Yeah, if I was in the garage, you know, in a shop working in the Ford dealer, I might not have even measured the bores. I would have just looked at them, threw a hone through them, figuring they look good, and maybe not even hone them. If I was in the dealer, you know, working on an engine like this, maybe just throw a set of rings in or free the rings up. But you know, those 306s didn't hone the cylinders or do other than throw a new piston in. And so, you know, it's just, I'm not going to pay somebody to do something I can do. I can clean all those oil galleries out. I can clean that block up just as good as if I had a hot tank. I had them hot tanked in the past and get them back, and they still have crud on them. You know, a couple of them I've taken 2-3 times back because I paid to have them hot tanked. And one of them I just said, oh, the heck with it, and just ended up doing it myself and ended up with a better job. So that's why I resist paying somebody to work on my cars, because they're not going to put the love into it that I am. This is something I enjoy doing. I enjoy just coming out here and doing this kind of stuff. It beats sitting in front of a TV and watching stupidity. You know, life is so long, why not do things you enjoy in it? This is something I really enjoy, looking at old cars. So that's one of the main reasons why I do it 100% myself. I don't know what the video camera's videoing. It's just sitting on a tripod next to me. But, you know, at least you can listen to me ramble and rant while I'm doing this. And I think that, well, there's still a little grease here. I want to get all the grease off of it before it goes in the blast cabinet. And get that. When I take the heads in, I'll get the piece for the oil pan and cut that one out, weld them in. Alright, I think that's good enough for the glass cabinet. Sorry I didn't video this, but that cleaned up good enough. I'll put a new seal. I got to clean the gasket off of it yet, and but it cleaned up pretty darn nice. It's got let's see, can you see the numbers on it? Looks like C3AE-6059-A from OCO. And then it says Sheffield maybe below that, and then it says 66 right there. It's got a 2 written inside the cover. I'll do some video when I get ready to polish the journals as I do them. I'm going to do the rod journals while the crank's sitting in the block, and then I'll stand it up on the flywheel to do the mains. And I'm just polishing these. I'm not going to, you know, the paper I'm using is so fine, it's not going to take any of that hardened material off. It's just going to clean them up and polish them. So it's not going to change any of the tolerances. It's not going to warp the crank or cause divots in it or run out or anything. You know, it's just, it's what they do in the engine shops. I used to, you know, that's how I used to do it when I did engines, and I've seen them in the engine shops doing it. So, you know, that's what I'm going to do. And the cylinders, I'm just going to run a hone through them real quickly. I'll try and get some video of the machining next time I have the block up. It just doesn't show up in the camera that well for some odd reason. And the cooling jackets, I've scraped all up in here the full length, and I can feel the casting right up here where the jacket ends. You can kind of see where right at the bottom of the cylinders here is where the jackets end, so I can put my finger right up to there, the full length, and it's all clean. And I am gonna wash this out really good and make sure there's nothing in it. It's just like casting sand and rust and sludge from 53 years of being around and sitting for 43 of them. This side has that steel. If anyone knows what the heck that thing is, does it show up? Little steel rod in there. There's one on this side too, right there. And they don't go into the block or the head parting surface, so yeah, I don't know what the heck those are, but they're there. Yeah, I know it's crude, but it does the job. I know those are the oil pan bolts, so when I take bolts out, till I clean them up, I throw them in a paper towel and label it, and then when I clean them up, I put them in a plastic bag and label them, or with the original part. And that way, and if they're size different, sensitive, that's, you know, lengthwise, it's not obvious where it goes, I put them in through some cardboard or something in their proper order. And I've been told these bolts on the heads tend to break off that are right here, so I'll give them all a little penetrant. I guess it's the top ones that tend to snap from what everyone tells me. And because I want to try and get the manifolds off in the next day or two, so I can, as soon as I get that gasket set, I can get them to the engine shop. These ones go into the casting all the way, so there's no, those will probably come out because there's no, these are open on this end, so they can rust. So that's why they're heavy too. Let me turn the camera off so I can move the other head. And this is the other head here. And I squirted them all while they were still standing on end. But hopefully they'll come off. This one was I believe part of the power steering bracket or something was bolted there. I don't remember. It's that this is the left-hand head, I do believe, and I think, oh, it was the oil dipstick that was bolted there, right here. So that one came off, and I'm just gonna keep them soaked between now and when I take them off maybe Monday or Tuesday, and hopefully won't have any. This stuff's pretty good stuff. I like it. It's my favorite stuff I've ever used. I think I've shown it in other videos, but I do like it. So I want to get those off so I can get the hard valve seats and the heads rebuilt. I am going to have it set up so it can run on unleaded gas. At one time there was a number on the front of the sump. This deep end is the front. The oil pump pickup. I cleaned the parting surface off. So this is ready for the blast cabinet, and then before I put it on, I'll take a ball peen hammer and just lightly peen those back out the other way, so when you tighten the bolt up, it tightens up in between. So these tend to get pushed up over time, and then when you put a new gasket on it, it doesn't tighten up here and it'll leak oil in between them. So you got to peen those, and the same with the valve covers. You know, this is there. This stuff was all, well, this oil pan is kind of a heavy gauge steel. You can kind of see the valve covers are a lot lighter duty. I don't know if that shows up or not, but can you see how it's kind of, so this will leak out here and out here if you don't peen that back down to where it is a little the opposite of the way it is right now. I think I will throw this in the parts washer and spray it with the Power Tune and let it soak for a day or two, and then give it a good washing, and I'll do the other one so I don't mix them up. And while I'm at it, might as well do this too. So this piece will drain the oil pump, and this piece I'll just maybe I'll give it a quick clean here with this, and then I'll give it a squirt with the Power Tune. All this stuff needs to be cleaned up, you know, like I say, this is all, should put my regular nitrate gloves on. Oh, that cleans up, the cast iron's cleaning right off. And that Power Tune gets in the fluid in here and helps it work better. And what I do is, like, I'll let the tank sit for, you know, a couple, 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll siphon off from the top slowly down, and then when I get to the muck, I'll scrape that out, and then I can take a plug out of the bottom and wash the bottom out. Then I just put the old fluid back in, because, you know, most of the crud's settled and it's still good. It's a little, you put new in it, it's discolored the first time you use it anyway. Just needs a little bit on there, just enough to kind of wet it. One last note on these connecting rods. I torqued a couple caps down and checked them with the telescoping gauge and a micrometer, and they're not really worn. So I don't know, I think when I was washing them in the parts washer, some of that golden brownie color came off, and they're starting to look like that silver Babbitt of the bearings. I mean, it doesn't really show. I'm looking at the viewfinder in the camera and it doesn't really show, but looking at them, yeah, they're a silvery color, so I think that's just oil varnish and stuff from the being parked for 43 years. You know, remember, this car hadn't been turned over in 43 years. It sat parked. So that could be what's the deal is with those rod bearings. They were not, the two I checked anyway, were not worn. I think I'm going to bead blast that and get it painted to make sure I get a good match with the paint, and then I can start drying for the new decals. And even though I was using a tripod, I still managed to get oil and grease all over the camera. I did spend about a few minutes wiping it up, so, you know, don't want to damage the camera too much, but that's, you know, when I'm working on this dirty stuff, using, you know, stuff, that's what happens. You get crud in the camera. So hopefully I don't wreck it. Alright, well, I'm going to call it a day. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see this car completely resurrected, subscribe to my channel. And thank you for watching.